Do you remember where you were the last time the year changed? Maybe you were surrounded by people, music blaring, glasses raised, a countdown echoing through the room. New Year's Eve is supposed to feel safe, celebratory, like nothing bad can happen while everyone is watching the clock. But danger doesn't care about tradition. Because while the world is distracted by fireworks and champagne, some people are driving long distances, some are inviting the wrong person inside, and some are leaving their doors unlocked just for a moment. Before we begin, let me ask you something. What part of the world are you watching from tonight? Let me know in the comments. I truly enjoy reading where our Midnight members are listening from. And if you enjoy these real-feeling, slow-burn horror stories, please like this video, share it with someone who loves a good scare, and subscribe to Mr. Bones' Midnight Society so you never miss what comes next. Tonight's stories all take place on a night meant for fresh starts. But for some people, the new year begins with fear instead of hope. Welcome to Mr. Bones' Midnight Society New Year's Eve episode. Now, let the nightmares begin. I didn't even want to go out that night. New Year's Eve always felt like a performance. Crowded bars, forced smiles, everyone pretending the next calendar page would fix their life. I'd spent most of December working late and eating takeout over my sink, telling myself I was too busy to date. The truth was simpler. I hated starting over. But a week earlier, I'd matched with a woman named Talia on a dating app I'd been scrolling out of boredom. Her profile was clean and minimal, no long captions, no dramatic quotes, just a few photos in natural light. She looked normal, real, the kind of person you'd pass on the street and not think twice about, which, for some reason, made me trust her more. Her messages were easy, funny, but not trying too hard, curious without being invasive. When she suggested meeting on New Year's Eve, I almost said no on instinct, then surprised myself by typing, "Sure, why not?" The day of the date, I almost canceled twice anyway. Once, in my apartment, while I stood in front of my closet, telling myself my nicer shirts made me look like I was trying too hard. Again, in the rideshare on the way over, when the driver asked if I had big plans for midnight, and I lied and said yes. Even outside the bar, I kept checking my phone like the screen could give me permission to go home. We'd picked a small cocktail place near my apartment, not a club. Somewhere with low music and dim lights. I told myself it would be one drink, maybe two. Then I'd go home and let the world shout at midnight without me. At 8:12, I was outside the bar adjusting my jacket collar like it mattered. My phone buzzed. Here. I looked up and saw her walking toward me from the corner, hands in her coat pockets, scarf wrapped high. She looked like her photos, which felt like immediate relief. "Talia?" I asked. She smiled. "Hi, you must be Evan." Her voice was warm, not too soft, not overly bright, just normal. That normality did more for my nerves than I wanted to admit. Inside, the place was busy but not suffocating. We got a small table near the back. She took the seat facing the room, which I noticed but didn't comment on. I ordered us drinks, something festive, because I was trying to pretend I wasn't a person who hated New Year's Eve. When the bartender came back, Talia asked for something specific, a drink I didn't recognize. He nodded like it was normal. When he walked away, I asked, "You come here a lot?" She smiled, like she wasn't sure she should. "Sometimes." It was a small answer, but it made me think she lived nearby, close enough to have a sometimes bar. close enough that this wasn't some random person passing through. We talked easily at first. Work, movies, the weird pressure of starting the year strong. She had a quick laugh that made other people glance over. Then, she'd lower her voice like she realized she'd gotten too comfortable. When I asked about her, she gave answers that sounded real but slightly incomplete. She worked in marketing, but not for which company. She had a sister, but didn't elaborate. She'd moved a few years ago, but didn't say from where. I told myself it was normal first date privacy and I didn't push. I did notice she kept her phone face down on the table, even when it buzzed. She never checked it. Not once. That would have felt flattering if it hadn't also felt deliberate, like she didn't want any light from her screen reflecting in the mirrors behind the bar. When our drinks arrived, I raised mine. To doing things we normally wouldn't. She clinked her glass gently against mine. To trying. The city outside felt like a machine warming up. Every time the door opened, cold air rushed in and someone would shout, "Happy New Year," at strangers. Staff had streamers hanging from the ceiling. Someone at the bar wore a plastic crown. It was chaotic in that harmless holiday way. Talia didn't wear anything festive. No glitter, no headband. Just dark clothes that didn't catch light, like she didn't want attention. When I joked about it, she shrugged. "I don't like being noticed." "Then why go out on the loudest night of the year?" I asked. She smiled. "Because sometimes the loudest night is the easiest night to disappear." It sounded like a joke. I even laughed. But later, I'd replay that sentence until it felt like a bruise. It was after the second round that I made the mistake. "Can we take a photo?" I asked. "Just for fun. It's New Year's." Her expression changed fast. Not angry, just closed, like a door gently clicking shut. "No," she said. I blinked. "No selfies? I promise I won't post it anywhere." "I'm camera shy," she said. "But you have photos on your profile." Her eyes flicked toward the front of the bar, then back to me. "Those are different. I don't like photos in the moment." Heat climbed my neck. "Sorry, I didn't mean to make it weird." "You didn't," she said quickly. "I just prefer not to, please." The word please wasn't a request. It was a boundary. I nodded. "Okay, totally fine." We moved on. The conversation recovered, but the air had shifted slightly. Still, by the time we finished our third drink, she was leaning forward, elbows on the table, telling a story that had me laughing hard enough to nearly spill my glass. "You're hilarious," I said, and meant it. She smiled. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "A jerk," she said. "Or someone boring, or both." "Ouch," she shrugged. "Dating apps aren't kind." As midnight approached, the bar got louder. People started chanting random countdowns like practice runs. I checked my phone and realized it was almost 11. Talia looked at me over the rim of her glass. "Do you want to go somewhere else? Somewhere quieter?" My apartment was 8 minutes away. I knew the warnings. I'd heard the stories, but she didn't feel like a story. She felt like a person. She felt like someone I wanted to keep talking to, away from drunk strangers and glitter hats. "We could go to my place," I said carefully. "If you want. No pressure." Talia's smile held. "Yeah, I'd like that." We left the bar, cold air snapping us awake. She linked her arm through mine as we walked. Once, she stopped suddenly and pretended to adjust her scarf. eyes scanning the sidewalk like she was checking if someone was behind us. When I asked if she was okay, she said, "Just making sure you're safe." I should have felt cared for. Instead, I felt measured. My apartment was small but clean. I offered her a drink. "I have wine," I said, "or whiskey, or a sad bottle of champagne in the fridge." "Champagne," she said immediately. "It's New Year's." I went to the kitchen and opened the fridge. She stood near the living room, looking around slowly. Not admiring, exactly. More like cataloging. Her gaze paused on my coat rack, my desk, my bookshelf. As I set 2 glasses on the counter, she said, "You have cameras?" I froze. "What?" She pointed toward the corner above my bookshelf. Is that a camera?" It was a small indoor security camera I'd bought after a coworker's apartment was broken into. It pointed at my front door and living room. "Oh," I said. "Yeah, it records if it detects motion." Talia nodded once. Smart. Something about how quickly she said it made my stomach tighten, but I told myself I was being paranoid. We popped the champagne. It fizzed loudly in the quiet apartment. We poured, clinked, and moved to the couch. For a while, it was nice. We sat close, talking about nothing important. She asked about my family. I answered. She asked if I liked my job. I gave her my usual half-joke about being professionally tired. She laughed, then leaned her head against my shoulder, and my brain did that stupid, hopeful thing it does when you haven't been touched kindly in a while. "Do you live alone?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just me." "And no roommate, no partner, no surprise visitors?" She said it lightly, but the question landed heavy. "No," I said. "Just me." She nodded. "Good." I laughed because it sounded like a compliment. The way she said good felt more like relief. At 11:57, I suggested we watch the countdown on TV. Talia shook her head. "No TV. Let's do our own." "Our own?" I asked. She held up her glass. "Just us. A quiet midnight." It sounded romantic, like something you'd see in a movie. So I agreed. We counted down ourselves. The numbers whispered between us, our breath mixing in the warm air. At midnight, we clinked glasses and kissed. Her lips were cold from the champagne. "Happy New Year," I said, smiling. She didn't say it back right away. She just looked at me for a beat too long, like she was waiting for something to happen. Then she smiled. "Happy," she said softly, and poured again. That last glass is the part my brain keeps trying to edit. I keep trying to convince myself I notice something obvious. A powder swirling, a smell, anything. But there was nothing. Just a faint shift in taste, like the bubbles were flatter. My body didn't collapse. It surrendered. My muscles went loose in slow stages, like someone was turning down a dimmer switch. My thoughts came apart. I remember trying to speak and feeling like my tongue belonged to someone else. "Talia," I said, and hearing my own voice sounded distant. She tilted her head. I feel weird." Her expression didn't change. "Lie down," she said. You're just tired." It sounded like something you'd hear from a nurse. Soft. Final. I laid back on the couch, telling myself I was overreacting, that I'd had too much too quickly. But somewhere deep in me, a colder part whispered that this wasn't champagne. I remember her taking my phone from the coffee table. I remember her fingers scrolling like she was checking something. Then she slipped it into her pocket, casual. I wanted to move. I couldn't. I wanted to panic. My body wouldn't make enough adrenaline. The last clear sound I heard was the deadbolt turning with a calm click. A single, quiet click that told me I was no longer the one who decided who entered my home. Then everything slid into black. When I woke up, it was bright. New Year's morning light filled my living room with a pale, unforgiving glare. My mouth tasted like metal and sugar. My head throbbed. My limbs felt drained in a way that wasn't a hangover. "Talia," I called, hoarse. No answer. The apartment was too quiet. My phone wasn't on the coffee table. My pockets were empty. I went to the kitchen. The champagne bottle was gone. The glasses were gone. The counter looked wiped clean, like someone had erased the night. I opened the drawer where I kept my spare keys. Missing. I checked the hook by the door where my car keys hung. Gone. My chest tightened, like a belt being pulled. In my bedroom, my laptop was gone. The drawer I kept my passport in was pulled open, searched. My wallet still had my cards, but the cash was gone. Robbed. By a woman I'd invited into my home because she'd laughed at my jokes and leaned her head on my shoulder. My mind tried to explain the small details before it accepted the big one. A coaster moved. A chair pulled out. The angle of a book on my desk. The tiny signs that someone had walked through my life while I was unconscious. I turned toward the camera above my bookshelf. If it recorded, it would show everything. I rushed to the old tablet beneath my TV, the one that controlled my smart home stuff. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped it. The security app took too long to load. When it finally opened, a timeline appeared with motion alerts. There were multiple alerts overnight. I hit the first one, time-stamped 12:06 a.m. The video started. There I was, slumped on the couch like a puppet with cut strings, mouth slightly open, breathing shallow and slow. Talia stood in front of me, holding my empty champagne glass. She watched me for a moment, expression unreadable. Then she nudged my shoulder with her foot. Not gently, not with concern. Like she was checking if I was truly out. My body didn't respond. She nodded once to herself, then walked to the front door and unlocked it. She opened the door wide. A man stepped inside. Tall, broad-shouldered, hoodie up, gloves on. He didn't hesitate. He didn't look around like a stranger entering someone else's home. He walked in like he knew the place. Talia moved aside, letting him pass, and pointed toward the hallway, toward my bedroom. The man nodded and disappeared down the hall. On screen, Talia went to my kitchen. She wiped down the counter with a towel, quick and practiced. Then, she picked up the champagne bottle and carried it away. She wasn't cleaning. She was erasing. The man returned holding my laptop under one arm, then went back down the hallway. He came back with a bag and a few smaller items. Things from drawers, from shelves, from places he shouldn't have known to check so quickly. He spoke to Talia, but the camera didn't pick up the words. They were too low. Talia nodded and walked toward the camera. For a second, I felt this sick hope that she'd look into it, that I'd get her face clearly, that I'd have something I could hand the police and say, "Here, here's who did it." Instead, she reached up, her palm filling the frame. The lens went dark behind her hand, but the audio kept recording. Her voice came through, close and intimate, like she was standing beside my ear. "Happy New Year." Then the recording cut. I stared at the tablet, frozen, my whole body buzzing with adrenaline and disbelief. I watched another clip. The man opened drawers, moved fast. Talia stood by the door, listening, watching the hallway like a lookout. At one point, she leaned toward my face and said something the mic barely caught, a faint murmur, like she was checking whether I'd wake. Then they left without rushing, like they'd done it before. The final clip showed the empty room, my limp body on the couch, distant fireworks flashing silently through the window. New Year's beginning, and me, unconscious in my own home. I needed the police, but my phone was gone. I knocked on my neighbor's door until someone answered. I must have looked insane. Pale, shaking, eyes wide. "I'm sorry," I said. "I need to call the police. My phone was stolen." He stared at me, then opened the door wider. "Come in." The police arrived, took a statement, copied the footage. They asked for her profile information. I gave them everything I had. Her name, her messages, her photos, the bar we'd been in. A week later, a detective called and asked if I'd ever sent her money, if I'd ever shared my address before meeting. "No," I said. She walked me home. There was a pause on the line, and then he said, "That happens." Like it was common, like it was Tuesday. By the time the police left, my sister was sitting on my couch, coat still on, holding my hand. "They'll find her," she said, but her voice didn't sound convinced. "I did everything you're supposed to do. I froze my credit. I checked my accounts. I filed reports with my building. I changed locks twice. I moved the camera to face the door more directly. I deleted the app. The app was no help anyway. I reported her profile, and within hours it was gone. Not suspended. Gone. Like it had never existed. When I tried searching our conversation, the messages vanished too, replaced by an error screen that made my stomach turn. For months afterward, I couldn't hear a knock without my chest tightening. I started checking my peephole twice. I started leaving lights on. I started locking my bedroom door even though it was inside my apartment. The worst part was how ordinary my apartment looked after. Nothing was broken. No shattered glass, no obvious violence, just absence. Empty spaces where my things had been, and that wiped clean counter like someone had been careful. I'd always thought danger announced itself with noise. That night taught me it can arrive smiling, sit on your couch, and leave you breathing, while you never even get the dignity of fighting back at all. Now, every New Year's Eve I stay home. I cook something simple and put on a movie loud enough to fill the rooms. At midnight, I don't go to the window. I don't watch fireworks. I just sit there and wait for the moment to pass. Because I learned something I didn't want to learn. Sometimes the year doesn't turn over cleanly. Sometimes it starts with darkness. And a voice you don't recognize anymore, close enough to cover your eyes, whispering like a secret meant only for you. Happy New Year. I'd been counting the days until I could go home, not because my life was bad where I lived. It wasn't, but because being in your early 20s in a new state is exhausting in a way you don't fully realize until you stop moving. I worked long shifts, paid rent on time, and learned streets that didn't mean anything to me yet. I missed the desert air. I missed the way nights cooled off in Arizona. I missed my parents' house, the one place that still felt like it belonged to me without effort. Flying would have been easier, but I wanted my car. I wanted the independence. I wanted the feeling of crossing state lines and watching the landscape change. So 2 days before New Year's Eve, I packed my trunk, filled my tank, and started driving south. The first several hours were peaceful. Long stretches of highway, the radio fading in and out as stations changed, my thoughts drifting between excitement and relief. I called my mom when I crossed the state line and told her I'd be there late the next evening. "Drive safe," she said, like she always did. I promised I would. It was mid-afternoon when I stopped for gas in a small town whose name I don't remember anymore. One of those places you pass through without meaning to. 2 pumps, a convenience store, a wide sky. I parked, got out, and started fueling. The wind was cold, sharp, the kind that made your eyes water. I had my hood up and my hands in my pockets when I heard someone say, "Long drive?" I turned. The man stood a few feet away near his own car. Mid-30s, maybe older. Clean jeans, jacket zipped halfway, baseball cap pulled low. Nothing about him stood out, which I think is why my guard stayed down at first. "Yeah," I said politely. "Headed home." "Where's home?" he asked. I hesitated for half a second, then answered, "Arizona." He nodded, like that information settled something. "That's a ways." "Worth it," I said, forcing a smile. Smiled back, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "You driving alone?" That's when the small discomfort started. Not fear, just a faint tightening in my chest. "Yeah," I said, "just me." He glanced at my car, then at the road, then back at me. "Holiday travel, I'm guessing." "New Year's," I said. He chuckled softly. "Figures. Everyone's got somewhere to be." My tank clicked full. I put the nozzle back and turned toward the store. "Well, drive safe," he said. "You too," I replied. I didn't look back when I went inside, but I felt his eyes follow me. Inside, I bought a coffee and a snack, trying to shake the mild unease. When I came back out, his car was still there, engine running. I told myself not to read into it. I got back on the highway 10 minutes later. About 20 minutes after that, I noticed a car in my rearview mirror. Same color, same shape. I changed lanes. It stayed behind me. I sped up slightly. So did it. Slowed down. It slowed down too. My heart picked up, but my brain immediately jumped to logic. Highways funnel people the same direction. Coincidences happen. I told myself to relax. At the next rest area, I pulled off. I parked, got out, stretched my legs, and took a few deep breaths of cold air. I walked into the restroom, splashed water on my face, and stared at myself in the mirror like I could reassure myself back to calm. When I came back out, the car was parked 2 rows away. The man from the gas station leaned against it, looking at his phone. My stomach dropped. He looked up when he sensed me, smiled like we were old friends, and gave a small wave. I nodded, heart pounding, and walked quickly to my car. This time, I didn't tell myself it was nothing. I told myself to stay alert. I got back on the highway and didn't take my eyes off my mirrors. The car stayed behind me for miles. Sometimes it lagged back. Sometimes it crept closer. I considered calling my parents, but I didn't want to sound dramatic. I didn't want to scare them over something I couldn't prove. At a fast food pit stop just before sunset, I pulled in, needing food and a mental reset. The parking lot was busy. Families, trucks, noise. I felt safer immediately. Inside, I ordered and sat where I could see the entrance. 10 minutes later, he walked in. Same jacket, same cap. He didn't look at me right away. He ordered food like nothing was wrong. When he turned, his eyes found me instantly. He smiled again. I didn't smile back. I ate quickly and left without finishing my drink. When I got back in my car, my hands were shaking. He didn't follow me immediately when I pulled out. For the next hour, I thought maybe I'd imagined everything. Then his headlights appeared again. By the time I crossed into Arizona, it was dark. The road stretched endlessly, familiar and foreign at the same time. My nerves were shot. I kept thinking about how much easier flying would have been. When I finally turned onto the street where my parents lived, I almost cried from relief. The car didn't follow me. I parked in the driveway, grabbed my bag, and went inside where warm, light, and familiar smells wrapped around me like armor. My mom hugged me tight. My dad took my bag. The house felt exactly the same, and for the first time all day, I let myself relax. I didn't tell them about the man. I told myself the danger was over. That night, I slept deeply. New Year's Eve passed quietly. Dinner, laughter, watching the countdown on TV. I checked outside more than once, but the street stayed empty. The next morning, I woke up feeling silly for ever being afraid. I offered to run to the store for groceries and coffee. My mom handed me a short list. "Be back soon," she said. The drive into town took 10 minutes. Everything looked the same as it always had. Familiar signs, familiar streets. Then I saw him. His car was parked across from the store. My pulse slammed into my ears. I didn't get out right away. I sat in my car staring at the windshield, trying to breathe normally. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was someone else with the same car. Then he stepped out. Same walk, same posture. He didn't approach me. He didn't have to. He went inside. I waited a full minute before following, keeping distance between us. Inside the store, I stuck close to other shoppers, my heart racing. Every aisle felt too long. Every corner felt exposed. I didn't see him again inside. I checked out, left quickly, and drove straight home, watching my mirrors the entire way. His car wasn't behind me. When I pulled into the driveway, my mom met me at the door with a smile. "Oh," she said casually, "your friend stopped by earlier." My blood ran cold. "My friend?" "Yes," she said. "From high school. He said he heard you were in town." My bag slipped from my hand and hit the floor. "He came in," she continued. "We had coffee. He waited for you for a bit." I stared at her. "What's his name?" She frowned slightly. "He didn't say. I assumed you'd know." My heart hammered so hard it hurt. "What did he ask?" I whispered. "Oh, just, normal things," she said. "How long you'd be staying, where you work now, if you were seeing anyone." I felt dizzy. "Mom," I said carefully. "I didn't tell anyone I was coming home." Her smile faded. "And someone followed me here," I added. "From another state." The silence that filled the room felt heavier than anything I'd experienced on that drive. My mom's face went pale. That was the moment I understood something I still struggle to explain. The danger wasn't that he followed me. It was that he already knew how to get inside my life, and that realization has followed me into every new year since. If I'm being honest, the hotel never felt right from the beginning. We just didn't want to admit that to ourselves. There were 4 of us: me, my best friend Lila, and 2 girls we'd known since college. We'd been planning the New York trip for months, talking about it like it was going to be this defining moment of our 20s, watching the ball drop, being in the crowd, starting the new year together in the city everyone dreams about. At first, we wanted an Airbnb, something cute, something we could all fit into comfortably, but every decent place anywhere near Manhattan was either booked or wildly expensive. Hotels weren't much better. Everything clean and central had been taken weeks ago. We waited too long. By the time we finally committed, our options were limited. We found a hotel about 20 minutes from Midtown. The price was low enough to make us pause, but not low enough to feel like a scam. The photos online looked fine, dated but clean. The reviews were mixed, but nothing screamed, "Don't stay here." Just words like basic, not luxury, and area isn't great. We told ourselves it was only for one night. We wouldn't even be there much anyway. That logic should have scared us more than it did. We arrived late afternoon on New Year's Eve, luggage rattling behind us as we walked from the ride-share drop-off. The street felt wrong immediately. Too quiet for the city, too many shuttered storefronts, too many people standing around with no clear purpose. A man leaned against a building across the street, watching us as we walked. Another paced near the corner, talking to himself. "Just keep walking," Lila muttered under her breath. The hotel itself looked tired. Yellowed lights, a flickering sign. The front desk sat behind thick glass, like it expected trouble. The man checking us in didn't smile. He slid the keys across the counter without making eye contact. "4th floor," he said. "Elevator slow." The lobby smelled like cleaning chemicals trying to hide something older. The elevator took forever. When the doors finally opened on our floor, the hallway felt narrow and dim. Carpet worn thin in the center. Walls scuffed like luggage had scraped against them for years. Our room was at the far end. Inside, it looked fine. Not great. Not terrible. 2 beds, a small bathroom, a window that faced another building's brick wall. We dropped our bags and tried to laugh it off. "It's just a place to sleep," one of the girls said. We changed, did our makeup, took photos in the mirror like none of our earlier doubts mattered. Outside, the city was gearing up. Sirens, music, people spilling into the streets. We locked the door before we left. I remember it clearly because I tugged on the handle twice to make sure. The night itself was incredible. Crowded, loud, cold in that sharp, exhilarating way. We stood shoulder to shoulder with strangers, counting down, screaming when the ball dropped. For a few hours, everything felt right. We danced, we hugged, we shouted, "Happy New Year" at people we'd never see again. Sometime after midnight, exhausted and hoarse, we decided to head back. The ride back felt different, quieter. The farther we got from the lights, the more uneasy I felt. No one else talked much. We were all tired, adrenaline wearing off. When we pulled up to the hotel, The street was almost empty. The man from earlier was gone. The lobby lights were dimmer. The elevator took even longer this time. On our floor, the hallway felt colder than before. When we reached our door, Lila stopped. "Did we leave the light on?" she asked. I frowned. "I don't think so." The light under the door was on. Slowly, she unlocked it. The room looked disturbed. Not trashed. Not obvious. Just wrong. One suitcase was open that definitely hadn't been before. Clothes lay half-folded, like someone had gone through them quickly and lost patience. My backpack sat on the chair instead of where I'd left it by the bed. "Did one of you come back early?" I asked. Everyone shook their head. My stomach dropped. We stepped inside, cautiously. The bathroom door was open. The light was off, but the mirror was fogged slightly, like someone had been close to it recently. One of the girls checked her purse. "My cash is gone." Another checked her bag. "So is mine." My's hands shook as I opened my backpack. My laptop was still there. My wallet, too, but my emergency cash was missing. Then Lila said the thing that made my skin crawl. "My underwear drawer is open." None of us spoke for a moment. Nothing big had been taken. No electronics, no passports, just cash. Small items. Personal things moved and touched. That somehow made it worse. We checked the door. It was locked. No damage. No forced entry. We stood there. 4 grown women suddenly feeling very small in a room that no longer felt private. One of the girls whispered, "Someone was in here while we were gone." The realization settled heavy and cold. They knew exactly when to come. They knew how long they had. We called the front desk. The same man answered. He sounded bored. "We think someone came into our room," Lila said. There was a pause. "Door locked?" "Yes." "Then nothing we can do," he said. "You should have used the safe." "There isn't a safe," she snapped. Another pause. "Housekeeping only comes in the morning." "Then how did someone get in?" I asked. Silence. Then, "You want me to call the police?" We hesitated. The idea of waiting alone for police in that hotel felt worse than doing nothing. "No," Lila said finally. "Just, we want to change rooms." Another pause. "No other rooms," he said. "Hotel's full." We hung up. No one suggested leaving. It was after 2 a.m. We were exhausted, scared, and didn't know where else to go. So we pushed the dresser against the door. We took turns sitting awake. Every sound in the hallway made us flinch. Footsteps, voices, the elevator dinging. At one point, someone tried our door handle, just once, slowly, testing. None of us slept after that. Morning came gray and miserable. We packed quickly, leaving the room like it was contaminated. As we waited for our ride, I noticed something on the doorframe. A small scratch, like someone had used a thin piece of metal to slip the lock. Something they'd done many times before. We didn't talk much on the ride to the airport. Later, when friends asked how New York was, we said it was fun. We didn't mention the hotel. But every New Year's Eve since, I think about that room. About how celebration makes you careless. And how sometimes the worst part of a trip isn't what you lose. It's realizing someone watched you leave. and knew exactly when to come back. And that brings us to the end of tonight's stories. If any of them stayed with you, if any of them followed you into the quiet moments after the countdown ended, then they did exactly what they were meant to do. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like the video. It truly helps the channel grow and allows me to bring you more stories like these. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Mr. Bones' Midnight Society so you can join us again around the campfire. Thank you, Midnight members, for spending your New Year's Eve with me. I'll see you again soon, right here, around our campfire. Happy New Year, Midnight members. May 2026 bring you fresh opportunities, creative breakthroughs, and all the good luck you need to chase what inspires you. Cheers to a powerful start and an even better journey ahead. Until then, sleep well, if you can.